shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. Shabbat, 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 shalom. Bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam, yai da 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 da, bim bam, bim 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 bam, bim 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 bam.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
For those who are in our pews, we can wish each other a Shabbat Shalom. For those who are with us online, if we can wish each other a Shabbat Shalom and tell us where you're watching from, where you're enjoying our services from. I see some. Aaron from Orlando today is with us, as well as our friends in West Bloomfield. But it's always good to be together wherever we're finding our services at this moment. And so, it's a time for us to reflect, a time for us to find some calm, time for us to come outside the cold and warm ourselves up from maybe the inside out. So, with that in mind, let's breathe in deep. Breathe in God's gift to each and every one of us. And breathe out slowly our gift to this world. We're told in tradition that our name, Yehudim or Yehudi, a Jew, has the same root as the word Todah, which means to give thanks, to say thank you. And so ingrained within our sense of peoplehood is that thankfulness, that gratitude, that sense of appreciation. That no matter what our weeks entail, we pause and we make sure that we notice the blessings that are here. We give ourselves these moments, this gift, this time to look within and do just that.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you return to where you were born and reborn and reborn. Return again, of your soul.
Reb Nachman of Bratslav taught over 200 years ago, the world is full of light and mysteries, both wonderful and awesome. But our tiny little hand shades our eyes and prevents them from seeing. And so he went on that Shabbat is a day for moving away the hands, the desiring, the small self, the relentless pull of ego, and just to let go so we can notice the true blessings that are here. In the midst of the craziness and the frustrations of our world, the things that weigh us down and pull us away, to be present in this moment. That's what our prayers are about. Returning to our soul, that idea that we're given actually a second soul on Shabbat, to connect a little more deeply with our world, with one another, with community, with God, to find the meaning in the time, the gift that we have.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. You died,
And so, with that in mind, we begin our prayers. We come together as a community. For those who aren't used to our CAYA Shabbat, our casual Shabbat, our come as you are, we don't formally use the prayer book, though you're always welcome to pick it up and use it as a guide to follow the prayers. They're there, but we sing some, we read some, we meditate, we ignore some. We just to let ourselves be. So if you want, we're at the Baruch, our call to worship as we come together as a congregation, and we rise. And if you want, that prayer happens to be on page 16 or so, I think. Please rise.
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael. Shem kevod malchuto leolam vaed. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto leolam vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Some of you may know that this weekend and this evening's service we called Reproductive Rights Shabbat. We'll talk a little bit more about that after services, but it has to do with the Torah portion this week and some of the verses that we read within it, which talk about the status of a fetus, but then also about what should be rights for everyone. Our tradition teaches that when we take our first breath in after we're born, that's actually when life begins. And so this next prayer was actually connected to that idea as well, because the rabbis believed that when we went to sleep at night, it was like a mini death, that our souls would depart from our body, and that in the morning, just like when we were born, that they would be returned to us with life renewed. So for a moment, I want us to close our eyes again, to focus on our breath, to breathe in, slowly inhaling through your nose, and to breathe out, exhaling through your mouth. Continue to focus on your breath. Breathe in that gift from God, and breathe out, sharing that gift with the world. That soul, we're told, has a name. In Hebrew, we call it a neshama, our soul. It makes us unique, makes us special, makes each one of us who we are. So as you continue to focus on your breath for a moment, say that word to yourself. Repeat it in your mind or aloud. Neshama, my soul. Neshama. What is it about your soul that makes you special? What is that gift that God has given you, that you've been blessed with, that you get to enjoy, and maybe that you share with others so that they can enjoy it too? Our neshama, our soul. We pray that tonight when we go to sleep, that God watch over it, protect it, and that tomorrow morning when we wake up to life renewed, refreshed, and that our soul has been strengthened.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us with wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
In preparation for the Amidah, which can be found on page 26 of our prayer books, there's a verse from Psalms that we read that asks God that God help us find the words to be able to speak to God. We say, Yehiyu l'ratzon imrei fi, may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our heart be acceptable to you, O God. The idea of that verse is that sometimes we have difficulty finding the right words. And for that reason, the rabbis gave us these fixed prayers. These words which we could recite that expressed our gratitude, which gave us an opportunity to ask for forgiveness, which gave us a chance to show our appreciation. But they realized, too, that sometimes we needed to have our own prayers, our own private conversation with God, that the words that were written for us, that were fixed, didn't express what we held within our heart. And so they gave us this moment of silent meditation, a moment for our own silent prayers. Please pray silently.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Eternal God, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevii Geula Livnei B'neihem, Lema'an Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah, Rav Lehoshia. Mashiv HaRuach, U'Morid HaGashem. Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim. Somech Noflim Ve'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mkayem Emunato Lishenei Afar. Michamocha Baal Gevurot, U'Midom Melach, Melech Memit U'Mchayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, Ve'le'eman atah l'chayot ha'akol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
In this week's Torah portion of Mishpatim, we find 53 different commandments for us to follow. 23 which are positive and 30 that are things we don't do. And in the positives are how we care for one another, how we remember one another, how we welcome a stranger, how we take care of the sick. Reminding that as part of our mission as a people, so we turn our prayers to thinking of those in need of healing and of strength with our prayers of Misha Berach. And so as we take the Torah out and we walk around with it, we remind ourselves that Torah has been a source of our hope, our strength for thousands of years, as it remains that for us as well. When we think of those in our community, friends and family, linking ourselves with them and bringing strength into one another's lives. Mishiberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarav Kalei Rachel. Hu Yivarech et Cholim, merciful God, who's blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel. Send your blessings to our loved ones who are stricken with illness, anxiety, friends and family we think of at this time. Ilis Lyoto and Will Armsden, Doreen Billett, Michael Brody, Larry Burke, Karen Kasman, Patty Seresny, Allison Davis, Michael Eisen, Barbara Esrig, Richard Gotro, Batiab Eshapanina, Ava Haberkorn-Hum, Ty Hall, Andrew Halo, Hank Heiser, Leslie Hubert, Jane Jacobs, Myrna Klein, Serafina Coffrin, Sarah Miriam, Karen Coltoneau, Rick Kornspan, Marta Lazar, Glenn Lee, Henry Leopold, Haley Lippman, Libby McIntyre, Zoe Marcus, Teresa Miji, Allison Mertzman, Gail Mintz, Lev Herschel Ben Bat Ami, Perry Moss, Lori Moss, Linda Newman, Rabbi Robert Nosenchuk, Razel Bat Leah Miriam, Leah Elisheva Bat Avram Bachana, Annette Pines, Eileen Bercelli, Melanie Pohl, Sharon Prower, Leo Prisby, James Raftery, Joanne Reed, Lydia Rofel, the St. Amand family, Rita Seidman, Danny Shepard, Bernard Sklar, Roberto Sunino, Barbara Storm, Madeline Taylor, Naomi White, all those, of course, battling the coronavirus, the 32,455 American troops who've been injured in Iraq, the surrounding areas to date, and all the names in our hearts. Baruch Atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. Bless you, God, give strength to those in need.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say bless those in need of healing with Rafua Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
The Kaddish may be understood as a praise for the gift of life, love, and thought. It is a reminder of all that came before us. It is a testament to the psalmists and sages, the poets and prophets of our people, who made our life and our faith possible. It is a celebration of our past, our present, and our future. Though it never mentions death, it is a reminder of all the friendships that we have cherished and the memories that we have shared. Even in the most painful times, the Kaddish is our statement of faith. And so on this Shabbat, we think of those friends and family who have been taken from us in these most recent days, whose Shiva, Shloshim, and Shana we mark. Barbara King Herbst, Arthur Tarnow, Judith Sampson, Michael Resnick, David Kahan, Clara Bayev, Jerry Levine, Fran Mursky, Shalom Nir, Armand Mazius, Joy Charis, Nat Fishman, Jan Brody, the 4,586 Americans of our armed forces who have been killed in Iraq and the surrounding areas to date, and the 879,988 Americans who have lost their lives to the coronavirus. And to their names we add those whose yard sites we mark, those of whose anniversary of passing we lovingly commemorate. Morris Barr, Jacqueline Burshess, Mayor Blackman, David Blank, Ruth Blumenstein, Leonard Cooper, Dolores Disner, Evelyn Felsenfeld, Isabel Finstein, Albert Finstein, Esther Goldie Fishman, Joseph Ginsburg, Sarah Goldberg, Edith Goodman, Marvin Gross, Nori Grossman, Leonard Kerner, Marvin Klein, Adele Kornfeld, Betty Lieberman, Ruth Moore, Bennett Nathan, Lillian Paul, Francis Pierce, Jason Daniel Pullen, Louis Popper, Anna Portney, Ethel Rabinowitz, Jonathan Raven, Sheldon Ritchie, Ida Sakwa, Carol Rose Schur, Amy Phyllis Sherman, Perry Schulman, Esta Siegel, Fagel Silverman, Noreen Solomon, Hilbert Sossin, Marilyn Stern, David Tabashnik, Robert Weinstein, Helen Zeidman, along with all the names in our hearts. Those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, do we join together in the immortal words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 46 of our prayer books, thanking God and praising God for the gift of life. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'almad divrach chirtei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam omei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, huya say shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. The source of peace, send peace to all who mourn. Comfort to all the bereaved among us here and everywhere. As together we say, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos.
It's You know, one of the challenges of seeing the screens here and watching the delay of the service too is I see that my microphone is flopping and I can't tell if it's working or not, but you can hear okay, Paulette? If you can hear, I know I'm in good shape, right? So it's good. We call tonight Shabbat for reproductive rights, and it's actually a national thing that we're a part of thanks to a number of individuals in our community. Melissa Kahn, from National Council of Jewish Women, brought this to our attention, made sure that we recognized it. And so a shout out to NCAW, Sally Jo Levine, who will be their new president in the upcoming year, who's our social action chair here as well. In addition to Susan Gertner, who is their executive director, who is a part of our Temple family as well. But when Melissa called a month ago and asked about this and if it would be something that we would share, it wasn't a very difficult decision on our part because it's something we believe strongly in. The reason why this Shabbat, of all Shabbatot, to do it isn't because it's not a bat mitzvah tonight and it's a nice quiet night. It's because the Torah portion, that one filled with 53 laws, has one law in there that is directly relevant to our understanding of abortion rights and what that represents. And so I wanted to look at a few texts tonight to share a Jewish view about reproductive rights, but not just a liberal Jewish view, which you know you get from your rabbis at Temple Shir Shalom, a Reform congregation, but really these are texts from Torah and Talmud that an Orthodox rabbi would agree with as well. Now, we all look at it a little bit differently, and there's nuances in there, and we can discuss it with a Tish afterwards. You can ask any question you want. But the first text comes, and, you know, it's the idea that for us, all of our teaching, it begins with Scripture, right? It begins with Torah, it begins with our tradition, and we delve into that. So in this week's Torah portion, in Parashat Mishpatim, we read, when men fight, as they happen to do, I guess, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman, and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact from him, the payment to be based on reckoning. But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. So, of course, those words, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, those are often misunderstood because they're all about just compensation, right? They're not about cutting off someone's hand or poking out someone's eye. It's about making it right with the compensation that would be equivalent to that in some way. And the crucial takeaways in this text are, one, the fetus is not considered a life. The loss of pregnancy is considered a damage, not murder. It's considered as something bad, yes, and something we want to prevent, but it's not a life, right? And the value of that is what is made so important. And you can ask more questions about that as well, but the fetus ultimately here, we're told, is not the same as a person. So the second text I want to quickly look at is from the Mishnah, which of course is 1700 or 1800 years ago or so. And the Mishnah is the first part of the Talmud written in Hebrew, and the rabbis teach there, and this is a little more difficult and graphic, but it's the reality. A woman who's having trouble giving birth, they can cut up the fetus inside of her and take it out limb by limb because her life, the mother's life, comes before its life. If most of it had come out already, they do not touch it because we do not push off one life for another. So the important insights from Mishnah here is that the life of a mother comes before the life of the fetus. The fetus only gains equal status once it's almost completely out of the womb and it's almost born. So abortion is actually allowed, here we learn in Jewish tradition, until the end of pregnancy, in order, if it must, protect the mother's life, right? Even at the very end there, which is crucial in understanding this. And so the rabbis go on saying how important this is in taking care of the health of the mother. And even to the extent that we'll see in our Judaism and Reform Judaism and liberal Judaism that any threat, physical, emotional, psychological, even financial, can be considered a threat. Now you can see how maybe some who are more traditional wouldn't interpret it that way, but you can see how some would. And, the issue in Judaism is, and in society, is when does life begin, right? And we know because as Richard heard me explain earlier this week, we know, and Paulette and Bob too, that life begins for the Jewish family after graduation from medical school. But, I'm sorry, that life begins when breath is taken by the baby, after birth, right? That it's not as a fetus that is considered a human life completely, but once breath is taken. There's a debate in the Talmud about that as well. And finally, the last text I wanted to look at is from the very beginning of the Bible, from Genesis, when the story of creation, when humanity is created, and God created human beings in God's image. In the image of God, God created male and female. God created them. Because human beings are created in the divine image. So Jewish teaching expounds on this, that our bodies are a reflection of the divine. They're holy because of that image. So, according to Jewish law, of course, we're not permitted to do whatever we want to our bodies, whether that be piercings or surgeries or cremations or tattoos, and in this case, even abortions. It's part of our body, it's seen. But it's also understood in taking care of the life of a mother. And so if we are saving the life, then abortion is permitted. Right? It's not seen as birth control. It's not seen as something to be done willy-nilly, but it's seen as a woman's right as well. And I use this text in addition in understanding of the creation of all of us, men and women, in the image of God, that we all have that right to make these decisions for ourselves too. Right? Part of the thing as we look at these laws in Jewish tradition, who wrote the laws? A bunch of men who never went through the difficulty of a pregnancy, who never struggled through the difficulty of pregnancy. And as my brother taught recently, my brother Rabbi Moskowitz, in a sermon, he said the only discomfort he had was having to make all the smoothies for his wife. So, right, he was the one tossing and turning, and I can appreciate that because watching the same thing with my wife too. But the reality is that women have the right to choose for themselves, that we don't impose them. Of course, the challenge in our country is what we see of who makes these decisions based on religious views and imposing one religious view on someone who it might not be the religious view. Because we know in Texas and Missouri and Louisiana right now, there are some very difficult laws that are being allowed. And very difficult. In Missouri, I think, there's only one abortion clinic that exists. All the others have been shut down, right? And so the idea of making this more difficult is a challenge. And that's why, for us, our commitment is to stand up and fight for reproductive rights. So those are just some quick texts and ideas behind why we believe what we believe and why we believe it's based, for us as Jews, in our tradition, and that traditional Jews would understand and appreciate that and believe in that as well, right? That even the Orthodox allow for abortion, especially in the cases of preserving a woman's life. So with that in mind, see if you guys have questions or thoughts or comments about what I just shared. And Rabbi will respond, because he didn't know what I was going to talk about. Just kidding. Yes, Paulette.
I just have a very interesting story to tell, and it was told to me by my mother. 70 years ago, my much older brother, when he was about to be born, he was breech birth. My mother was in a Catholic hospital, but her doctor was Jewish. And the hospital stance is, do not do anything to cause that baby to end the baby, because that would be an abortion, even if it meant to save the mother. So the doctor told asked my father, what do you want me to do, save the baby or save the mother? We can't do both. And of course my father said save the mother, and he already had 3 kids. I guess about 3 kids with a new baby. Okay. As it turned out, so he said, the doctor said to my mother, I'm going against what I have been told to do in this type of a situation, and I'm going to save you. It will cost the baby, because I can't save both. Well, as it turned out, he was able to save both, and my brother is fine. But it was a conundrum, really, because here's a Catholic hospital that says the baby has to be born. If it kills the mother, then so be it. Whereas as Jews, we say we need to save the mother, because the baby is not
Right.
taking a breath. It's not. So that was very interesting.
So for those that are watching online, Paulette was sharing a story about her family, and that her mother was in a position and her father were in a position when her mother was giving birth to an older sibling, much older, she shared, that it was in a Catholic hospital. And to be honest, it's the same challenge that still people face today, that when you're in a hospital, certain hospitals have, all of them have a different ethics code as they're going through and certain requirements. And the challenge that her parents faced was that her older brother was breached, and the doctor said to her father that he was going to go against protocols and asked what he wanted him to do as a doctor, whether it was to put Paulette's mother's life as a priority or the fetus's life as a priority, because he couldn't do both. He didn't believe that both of them would be able to survive the childbirth. And we still see that today.
Right.
Looking at different hospitals in our area, that the fetus and the mother have equal status in many hospitals here. And so that choice, in some hospitals, you wouldn't be given that choice.
And, you know, the good fortune is the possibility of abortion. And we know people at our congregation right now, a young mom here who fortunately has healthy children now because she was able to have an abortion because she had a very risky pregnancy and a lot of difficulty in that. And because they were able to terminate that pregnancy, she was able to regain her health and have more children. So thank God she had that option. You know, too often a debate is portrayed as pitting those who believe in God and God's creation against those who don't believe in God, right? On one side are those who think we should have reverence for life, and the other are those who think we should be able to do whatever we want with our bodies. And that's not really what the argument is that we would espound to. It's say we believe in God and have reverence for life, but the life of a mother comes first, right? A fetus is holy, and God is within that too, but we take care of the mother first. Other questions or thoughts?
Joan? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would argue as well.
You want to repeat so that others...
Yes. Well, Joan was saying that, was your brother? My brother. But his understanding that as a physician took an oath to never cause harm. And so he believes that the fetus is a life, and so that you couldn't do an abortion. And that's a debate in there as well. And, you know, my argument would be that I agree with doing no harm, but if it's to protect the mother, then the fetus isn't as significant as the mother, because it's not, in Jewish law, considered a life yet. He chose the right part of, you know, of his right part of medicine. Joan says he's an ophthalmologist. That's.
I think that's not the concept, that he agrees that the mother's life should not be taken. But he's always conflicted because of the concept of taking the life, not taking the life. But
I think that's... Yeah. Joan was saying, for those that are online, that's the conflict, is trying to figure out, for him, it sounds like, where does life begin? And not wanting to do any harm and figure that out. And Rabbi started, and he said, there's a lot of different nuances within this. That he gave 3 texts from our tradition that talked about why abortion is something that's permissible and the status of a fetus and when life actually begins. And I mentioned during the Hashtivenu that there's a traditional thought that with that first breath in that we take, that's when life begins. Maimonides, 1,000 years ago, was talking about when does life begin, or when do we see the status of a fetus or something else that's going on. And he said up until those first 40 days that it's just mere water inside the mother. And so he recognized as well that there's different periods, trimesters, whatever we want to call it, but that he could designate in the life of a fetus as he was doing things, or the status of a fetus. Across the board, if the mother's healthy, if the fetus is healthy and looks like it will go to full term, all 3 major denominations within Judaism don't say that abortion should be used as a form of birth control. That there has to be a significant reason that would cause the mother harm, is often the idea that the fetus is pursuing the life of the mother. And some will look at it and say that that's physical harm, that as Rabbi was describing, a mother here in our congregation experienced, and therefore, in order to save her life and to preserve hers and to be the mother of other children, an abortion was necessary. But it also had to do with, some will look at it and say, her mental status and her mental health. That's part of that as well. And so there's a lot of different nuances within that in terms of within each movement, at what point is something still permissible, what is defined as the health of the mother, the carrier of the fetus, as they go through and determining whether it would be permissible or not according to Jewish law, as we look at it.
Right, and God forbid, a late-term abortion like that is, such a difficult thing to do, but that's only in a sense to save that mother's life, not because, I decided I want to have a baby, as horrible as that could be. So, yes? Joan asked the question, is there a teaching that on Mount Sinai, she heard Rabbi Schwartz, the elder, once teach that on Mount Sinai, all the Jewish souls were present at that time. And is that part of our tradition? And the answer is, Rabbi?
Goes to that old joke, when you can't figure out where you know somebody from, it's the idea, it must have been at Sinai. Is the joke that we'll say that's where we met at one point. There's a tradition.
Yes, it is a tradition, though.
But it's that idea, it comes from that idea as well, that all the souls were present at that time. I think it's a mystical tradition as we look at it. So it's not set in stone that says, Torah says that every soul was present at Mount Sinai at that time, but that it's a mystical tradition and a mystical belief that all of our souls were there.
Actually, I think it's a midrash. So we're talking 2,000 years ago or so. A midrash arts, but I'm sure Kabbalah developed that more so in the idea of it. And so I know Hasidic Judaism, Chabad, loves that teaching. And the idea that we've all been here before, we're all connected, and we've been on that journey. And so the joke, Rabbi, I can tell you about a man coming up to me at the Kotel in Jerusalem and saying, hey, how you doing? And I'm racking my brain. Is it from St. Louis growing up? Oh, was it from college? Were we in youth group together? Was it, all the different things I may have seen? And finally he said, no, we were at Sinai. And I'm like, right, and so he wanted me to come for Shabbos dinner. It was a hook. So the question is, when does a soul enter the human? And that's a whole discussion within Jewish tradition as well. And so Joan was asking, like, well, is the soul in the fetus? And then if a miscarriage happens, does the soul get recycled or, goes to another body and stuff? The teaching I like is that the soul is placed in the fetus right before delivery, right before the baby is born. And there's that one teaching that there's an angel that gives you that during the time of growth of the fetus, all knowledge is being given to that fetus. You're gaining everything during that time, and you're ready to come into the world. And right before you're born, I forget which angel it is, gives you a whack right across and that's why you have an indentation right above your lip, right above your mouth and your lip there, because that's where the angel hit you. If you're hit really hard, you got a cleft too in your chin. Right? And when the angel whacks you, all the knowledge of Torah, everything falls out of your brain, and then you spend your life trying to regain that. And that's why you have those deja vu moments, that you regain these things and gather it, so that we've, yes, been here, and our souls have been here too. So these are the ideas. Now, Baba myself. Joan! So it's a teaching, yes. And I love that teaching. And no, I don't necessarily believe that, but I love what it says about the soul was put into that baby right at birth and what that represents. So, but the idea that you say when someone's an old soul, because we have that sense that that young child, that individual, whatever, seems to have a lot more knowledge than just someone of 10 or someone of 40 or whatever. They've been here before. And that's a Jewish teaching, in Kabbalah, the transmigration of the soul, that we've been here and we go through lots of cycles in our lives, in our world. And often one teaching is our souls go together, so that we've been in this before as well. So, listen, more conversations to have. Thanks for engaging with us for Shabbat of Reproductive Rights, or Repro Shabbat, as National Council of Jewish Women named it and got us the word for that. For those who don't know about NCJW, really great organization, it's strong in our community, and that many who are a part of it as well. And so we'll conclude our services with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. What? Read the question in the chat. What do we do about the dangerous laws in Texas, Louisiana, and Missouri? Great question that exists right now. So I'll say, what do we do about the laws that are falling upon certain states, that are very troubling? One, don't move to those states. Sorry.
Well, I'll add to it. Rabbi mentioned, and I think that's where it was picked up, those 3 states. But over the last year, what I was reading today on NCJW's page, is that there have been over 100 laws enacted to prevent abortions and women's reproductive rights in the United States during just this past year, the most in any year since Roe versus Wade was passed. And so what can we do is making sure that we're getting out there and one, having conversations like we are today, making sure that others knows that this is a First Amendment right, and this is a First Amendment issue for us as we're having these conversations, that it's for us as Jews, understanding when life begins, but for others as well, thinking about it and having those conversations so that people know where we're coming from and can understand that. 2, it's about supporting representatives that are going to push forward an agenda in that sense that are going to be in line with what we believe. And so having conversations, doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you might find yourself on, but making sure that there's a candidate that is going to represent those values as laws are being passed and being put into place as well. And that there will be those in positions that can vote against laws that would deprive others of reproductive rights. And then supporting organizations as well that fight for reproductive rights and that help to make sure and ensure that people have those.
Yes. And so with that in mind, we join with Cantor in the lighting of the candles and the blessings for them as well.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu Lehadlik ner
rise together as we give thanks for the sweetness of our time together and this day of Shabbat with the blessing of the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafim. Amen. L'chaim.
Chaim. And speaking of blessings and sweetness, we welcome Pastor Charles Packer from Pine Hill Congregational Church, who joined us this evening for our services, not so randomly, because he actually will be worshiping here, leading his congregation on Sunday mornings when we're not here. And they're partnering with us and have an office here and are a part of the Shir Shalom community. So welcome. Glad you could join us tonight, Pastor. It's a pleasure having you with us. We give thanks for the blessings and our time together.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you. May God protect you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'choneka.
May God shine upon you, and may God shine through you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom.
May God always be a part of who we are. Give us all of our blessings, our hopes, giving us gesinnt health, parnasa success, nachas from kinder, joy from youth who are a part of our lives and our world, and most of all, blessing us with peace, with shalom. Amen.
Vayasem lecha shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos.
We didn't mention our upcoming services, of course. We have another Shabbat Oneg in 4 weeks. On the 25th is burgers, babka, and beer for Shabbos. And then for those who are in Florida, on the 18th, we'll be down at Congregation B'nai Israel for services there, Cantor and me. So if you happen to be in Florida, we're missing each other, right?
And in 2 weeks as well, we have another discussion post services, which is about living wills. Oh yeah. So February 9th. Good Shabbos.
Yep, I have a question too.